My name is Sandy Williams. I'm 29 years old, and here's how my story begins. It begins on a Thursday night, the kind of night that feels too ordinary for your entire life to split open. But that's exactly what happened. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, elbows on my knees, fingers woven together so tightly my knuckles were white. The same bed he and I had picked out together, the one he insisted felt like a cloud, the day we tested mattresses at the store. It was supposed to be ours for years. But the room didn't feel shared anymore. The scent in the air was wrong. Sharp men's cologne mixed with the cold, chemical bite of hairspray, the kind he used whenever he went out with the guys. Except for months now, the guys seemed to be invisible. No photos, no tags, just nights that started at 8 p.m. and ended at sunrise, and a new presence that lived somewhere inside his phone. Her name was Melissa, a girl from the gym he'd said casually one morning like it was nothing. Like the way he said her name didn't already feel like a hand tightening around my ribs. I'd watched the signs, the lock screen that used to sit face up and open, the messages that made him smirk privately, the way he'd tilt his phone away from me when it lit up, and the faint scent of perfume on his jacket floral, not mine. That Thursday night, he stood in front of the mirror, styling his hair again, brushing on cologne again, slipping into the navy button-down he once called our anniversary shirt, except now he wore it every time he went out without me. "Where are you going tonight?" I finally asked, my voice steady, though everything inside me trembled. He didn't even look at me at first. He adjusted his cuff, rolled his shoulders, admired the fit of the shirt. When he finally met my eyes in the reflection, his expression was cool, detached, like a man speaking to a coworker, not the woman he'd lived with for 3 years. "Out." "With who?" He shrugged. "Friends." "Which friends?" He turned, then leaning back against the dresser, arms crossing over his chest. The stance was confrontational, deliberate, like he'd been waiting for this moment, rehearsing for it. "Why does it matter, Sandy?" "Because you've been gone every night this week," I said quietly. "Because you've been distant for weeks. Because—" "Oh my God," he groaned, dragging a hand down his face. "Not this again." The dismissal sliced deep, but he wasn't finished. "I'm living my life. I don't need to report to you every time I step outside." I swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for a report. I'm asking for honesty. You're texting someone constantly. You smile at your phone and hide it when I walk in. You smell like someone else's perfume half the time." And Melissa, his jaw tightened. A flash of something panic guilt flickered for a millisecond before he smothered it beneath a cold smirk. "What about Melissa?" "You talk about her a lot," I said softly. "More than you talk to me lately." He stepped closer, looming, his voice dropping to a sharp whisper. "You're imagining things." "No," I whispered. "I'm noticing things." That's when he delivered the line, the one that would detonate everything. "Let me make this very clear, Sandy." He pointed to himself with slow, deliberate precision. "I'll wear what I want." He lifted his phone. "I'll text who I want." Then he grabbed his coat. "And I'll go out with whoever I want." He paused, letting every word soak into the silence. "And if you don't like it," a cruel smile stretched across his face, "leave." For a moment, I just stared at him. At the man I'd once driven to the emergency room at 3 a.m. when he sprained his ankle. At the man who cried into my shoulder when his father died. At the man who once whispered that he couldn't imagine a future without me. And now he was looking at me like I was a nuisance. Something broke inside me. Not loudly, not explosively. It was a clean terminal crack, a quiet shatter, a decision settling into place without drama or tears. I stood. His smirk faltered. "What are you doing?" he asked, the first hint of real emotion slipping into his voice. I didn't answer. I walked to the closet. My hands didn't shake. I pulled out my suitcase, the old hard case red one I'd taken to college and never thrown away. The one he said looked ugly and basic. I opened it on the bed and began packing. 1. Fold. Place. Repeat. My sweaters, my jeans, my work blouses, my skincare bag, my running shoes. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Sandy, stop. Seriously, you're being ridiculous." I moved past him into the bathroom, gathered my toothbrush, makeup bag, earrings, slipped them in the side pocket of the suitcase. I unplugged my phone charger from the wall. "You're really doing this?" His voice pitched higher, cracked faintly. "Over nothing." I zipped the suitcase slowly, deliberately, like sealing away the last 3 years. "This is insane," he snapped. "You don't have anywhere to go." I walked to his nightstand, the place where he kept his notebooks and receipts. I took one of the small tear-off pages, picked up his pen, and wrote 3 words. "You got what you asked for." I folded it, placed it on the center of the pillow, the same pillow where he used to pull me close, whispering goodnight. I lifted my suitcase handle. Sandy. His voice finally fractured thin with disbelief. You're actually leaving. I didn't answer. I walked down the hall. Each step felt impossibly light, like gravity no longer applied to me. He followed me to the door, his voice rising, cracking, echoing. You're going to regret this. You hear me. Nobody else is going to deal with your drama. You're nothing without this relationship. I opened the front door. The cool night air washed over me like a baptism. I stepped out, closed the door behind me. Not a slam, a clean final click. And I breathed. For the first time in months, I could actually breathe. I drove to a hotel, checked in, and collapsed on the crisp white sheets, staring at the ceiling. My phone lit up with his name again and again, vibrating like a trapped insect. I turned it face down and fell asleep in the center of the bed, not clinging to one edge, waiting for him to come home. Just me, just peace, just the beginning of the end. The next morning, sunlight pushed weakly through the hotel curtains, pale and indifferent, as if the universe hadn't noticed that my life had collapsed the night before. I woke slowly, disoriented for a few seconds until reality slid back into place with a cold, metallic clarity. I was in a hotel. I had walked out. I had left him. The sheets around me felt too clean, too crisp, like I was lying in someone else's life. My phone was on the nightstand, flipped face down, the same way I'd left it when I crawled into bed. I hesitated before touching it, not because I wanted to hear from him, but because I already knew what would be waiting. When I finally turned it over, the screen lit up with a wall of notifications. 17 missed calls, 9 voicemails, 22 messages. Not one of them looked like an apology. Every preview line was either angry, frantic, or demanding. Sandy, answer your phone. This isn't funny. Where are you? You're being ridiculous. Call me back now. There was something eerily satisfying about the cold detachment that settled over me as I scrolled. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. My chest didn't twist with longing. It was like reading the meltdown of a stranger. I muted the phone and left it charging while I got ready. A hot shower loosened my muscles. Fresh clothes made me feel almost human. By noon, I had checked out of the hotel with a polite smile, as if I were just another traveler passing through. But I wasn't passing through. I was moving on. I drove across town to a tiny furnished studio I'd found in a late-night search. It wasn't glamorous white walls, a small window overlooking a brick courtyard, a kitchenette with buzzing fluorescent lights. But when I signed the paperwork and the leasing agent handed me the key fob, something inside me steadied. It was small, it was quiet, it was mine. I wheeled my old red suitcase inside and closed the door. The soft thud echoed in the empty room, strangely comforting. I set the suitcase down and sat on the edge of the bed, an unfamiliar bed, but one untainted by arguments or cold shoulders or the scent of someone else's perfume. For the first time in months, the silence didn't suffocate me. It held me. That evening, I heated a frozen pasta bowl in the microwave and ate it at the tiny round table by the window. No one sighed at the crinkle of the plastic container. No one rolled their eyes at the steam fogging the glass. The quiet felt fragile but promising, like a newborn thing learning to breathe. My phone lit up again and again, vibrating against the table until it felt like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. When I finally unlocked it, the messages filled the screen. Where are you? Sandy, this is stupid. You're overreacting. Pick up. Come home. The tone shifted over the hours from irritation to confusion to a thin, stretched panic. Not once did he say he was sorry. Not once did he acknowledge the words that drove me out the door. He wasn't missing me. He was missing control. I didn't respond. Later that night, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. His newest post hit me like a splash of cold water, a dimly lit bar, whiskey glasses, neon blue lights, and a woman's arm draped over his shoulder, long nails painted neon pink. Melissa. Her laugh was visible even in the blurry image. The caption read, "Living life, no drama," with fire emojis and hashtag fresh start from his friends. But his eyes, they didn't match anything in the photo. Wide, red, panicked. Like a man trying to outrun the consequences he'd expected me to absorb forever. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed once deeply. Screenshot. Blocked. Across every app, every platform, every channel. Block, block, block. The silence afterward felt like shutting a window on a thunderstorm. 3 days after I moved into the studio, a call from an unknown number buzzed through. Normally I wouldn't have answered, but instinct made me swipe. Sandy, a sharp inhale. It's Rachel, his closest friend, the one who always encouraged him to go out, who said I needed to loosen up. Her voice was tight, almost shaking. Not with worry for him, maybe, but mostly with excitement. Rachel lived for drama as long as she wasn't the one drowning in it. I know I shouldn't call you, she rushed on, but I'm concerned. I said nothing. You actually left, like really left, she pressed. He's losing it. I mean, Melissa blocked him. Everywhere. Her gym friends said he showed up 2 days in a row and she literally hid in the locker room. And the guys he went out with, they're annoyed. They think he's being too dramatic. The irony was almost comedic. When I cried, I was emotional. When he cried, he was dramatic. Rachel kept going breathless. And at work, total disaster. He got written up. He started crying in front of the whole team. They said he walked out early and didn't come back. His apartment, your apartment, he can't afford it alone. He might have to move in with his mom. It should have hurt. It didn't. This was the aftermath of his choices, not mine. You need to call him Rachel, said her tone turning scolding. You were always the steady one. You kept him grounded. He needs you. There it was. The real reason she called. Not love, not concern, not reflection. Just a demand for free emotional labor. No, I said quietly. A pause. What do you mean no? I mean no. She scoffed, exasperated. Wow, he was right. You've changed. I hope so, I said and hung up. I blocked her number before her outrage could reach me. Over the next few days, the quiet of my studio grew warm. I started running again in the mornings, the kind of slow jog that let my thoughts untangle. I bought groceries without worrying someone would complain about the price of produce. I left dishes in the sink and washed them later. I stretched out on my bed, and didn't cling to one cold edge waiting for footsteps in the hallway. Every night, I muted my phone, slid it face down, and breathed in a silence that finally felt clean instead of lonely. I didn't know then that the silence that saved me was swallowing him whole, but I would soon. I didn't realize how much energy I had spent holding him together until I stopped doing it. The quiet in my studio apartment settled around me like a blanket, warm and weighty, pushing the old chaos out inch by inch. I woke up without bracing for impact. I drank coffee without scanning for mood shifts. I cooked dinner without worrying that I'd hear his key in the door followed by another excuse about why he was late. I hadn't heard his voice in over a week. I assumed he'd eventually get bored of calling, texting, trying. Men like him usually did. Their outrage had a short battery life. Their desperation burned hot fast, then fizzled out once another distraction arrived. But this wasn't fizzling. This was collapsing. It began on a Thursday morning one week and one day after I left. I was coming back from an early run, breath-heavy hair, damp with sweat, when my phone buzzed repeatedly in my pocket. I assumed it was work emails. It wasn't. 5 missed calls from another unknown number. Then a text. You need to pick up. It's important. For a moment, I considered blocking it without replying the automatic reflex I'd grown used to. But something about the message tugged at me, not with hope, but with foreboding. I let it ring once more before answering. Sandy, a man's voice asked, harsh, sharp. It took me a moment to recognize it. It was Daniel, his coworker. The same coworker who once laughed about how women get too emotional whenever he'd show up late from lunch because he was flirting with a cashier. What is it, I asked, keeping my voice neutral. What the hell did you do to him? He snapped. My grip tightened around the phone. Excuse me? He's a disaster, Daniel said, the words coming fast. He showed up late all week. Missed deadlines. He couldn't give a single update in the team meeting today. He walked out halfway through when the manager called him out. He didn't come back. I let him ramble. His frustration wasn't my problem. His tone was accusing, like I'd broken something that belonged to them. He was crying outside in the parking lot, Daniel continued. We didn't know what to do. He kept saying, she left, she left, she left, like a mantra. I closed my eyes briefly. Not because I felt guilty, but because the predictability of it all was exhausting. And why I asked quietly is that my responsibility. Daniel paused. Not because he understood no, but because the question had never occurred to him. Because he's your boyfriend, he said, like that explained everything. Was I corrected? He made a frustrated noise. You can't just walk out and expect him to function normally. I almost laughed. The absurdity of it. The entitlement. The assumption that my emotional labor was owed to him and that without it, his mess automatically became my mess to clean again. I don't owe him my stability, I said, or my sanity. Daniel muttered something under his breath. Something like unbelievable. Then he said louder, well, you should know he left work completely. I don't know where he went. Just thought you'd want to know. I don't, I said simply, and I hung up. For a long moment, I stood in my kitchen, still catching my breath from the run, the phone warm in my hand. The old version of me would have spiraled, would have rushed to his apartment, would have cried into his shoulder, would have patched him up again. Not anymore. His unraveling wasn't my responsibility. He had built the cliff, walked himself to the edge, and jumped. I wasn't going to dive after him. Later that day, another text arrived. Not from Daniel, from his mother. I heard you left. He's devastated. Please talk to him. I stared at the message, my jaw tightening. This was a woman who once told me, while carving a turkey at Thanksgiving, that men need freedom or they'll suffocate. Now she wanted me to soothe the son she'd encouraged to act like a bachelor long into his 30s. I didn't reply. The next day, another message. Then another. Then his sister. Then his aunt. All implying the same thing: his suffering was my fault. My departure was the problem, not his behavior. I didn't reply to any of them. On Sunday, I stopped checking my phone entirely. I left it on silent, face down on the counter, while I scrubbed my tiny kitchen, rearranged the furniture, and played old vinyls I found in a thrift store. The sound filled the little apartment, warm and crackling, a world away from the constant barrage of demands. I was chopping vegetables later that evening when something tightened in my chest, a strange, instinctive intuition, and made me check the window. Someone was standing near the courtyard gate. My stomach dropped. No, not yet. Not him. He didn't know where I lived. But then the figure shifted in the dim lamplight. Not him. It was Rachel. She was pacing in place, glancing around like she wasn't sure whether to text me or buzz the building. When she spotted me through the window, she raised both hands in a gesture of surrender. I opened the window halfway. Why are you here? She exhaled hard breath, fogging the cold air. He's not okay, she said bluntly. He came to my place, drunk and crying. I've never seen him like that. Rachel, I said evenly, this is not my problem. Maybe not, she shot back, but he keeps saying your name, over and over. I thought you should know. I stared at her expression, unreadable. I could see the pity in her eyes. Pity for him, irritation at me. Irritation that the woman who had always swallowed her hurt was no longer willing to perform emotional heroics. He said something else, Rachel added quietly. He said he should have never said those words to you. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just an emptiness that felt strangely clean. Good, I said, maybe he'll learn something. Rachel blinked, genuinely taken aback. You really don't care. I did, I replied, for 3 years. And now I care about myself. Her face tightened with offense or maybe confusion. She didn't know what to do with this version of me, the Sandy who wasn't scared, the Sandy who wasn't waiting for permission to leave. She left without another word. That night, as rain started tapping softly against the window, my phone lit up with another unknown number. I didn't answer it. I stared at the glowing screen until the call faded. Then, as a slow calm spread through me, I turned the phone off entirely for the first time since I left him. The silence that followed was so heavy and absolute that it felt like the universe finally exhaled with me. He was unraveling. I was rebuilding. And the distance between us grew wider every hour. 2 weeks passed without hearing his voice. Not a single unblocked call, not an answered text, not a crack in the wall I'd finally built around myself. I thought the silence might eventually lose its weight and become normal, maybe even fade into something like peace. Instead, it deepened, sharpened, became the quiet hum of a life beginning to reset itself. The studio apartment had started to feel lived in, not cluttered, just warm. I bought a cheap little lamp that cast a soft amber glow across the walls at night. I hung a thrifted frame print above the bed. I made pasta burned, half the noodles, and laughed at the smoke alarm going off, because there was no one to glare at me about it. I opened the windows in the afternoon to let in the cool air, letting music drift out into the courtyard. But by the 3rd week, the attempts to reach me took a darker turn. It began with another unknown number, buzzing aggressively against the kitchen counter late one night. Normally, I let these go unanswered, but something in my gut told me to pick up. The knife I was using to chop tomatoes hovered midair as I pressed the screen. I didn't speak first. Sandy. His voice was raw. Not angry, ragged, as if he'd been screaming or crying or drinking. Maybe all three. I didn't reply. You're happy, aren't you? He continued, each word sharpened by bitterness. You're just living your little single life, cooking, running, whatever, while I'm here trying to fix what you broke. What I broke. My grip on the knife tightened. You left, he said, voice rising. Over nothing. I closed my eyes, inhaled slowly. You told me to leave if I didn't like it. He scoffed, the sound ugly and incredulous. You're really throwing that back at me. I'm repeating exactly what you said, I replied, tone steady. The steadier it was, the angrier he became. Oh, so now you're calm. Now you're rational, he spat. You don't get to play the calm one, Sandy. You left. You vanished. You blocked me everywhere. You didn't even let me explain. You didn't want to explain, I said. You wanted to be obeyed. He made a sound like he'd been punched. Then silence stretched between us, not soft, not healing, but tight and dangerous. Finally, he exhaled shakily. I'm sorry, he whispered, but the words landed wrong. Not an apology, a tactic, a test balloon, a fishing line cast into the dark. I didn't take the bait. He sensed it immediately. His voice hardened. Fine. You know what? Forget it. I don't need this. I don't need you. He hung up. I blocked the number. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Another number. I blocked that one too. The next evening, at nearly midnight, he left a voicemail. It slipped through before I could hit block. I didn't listen at first. But later, lying awake, staring at the ceiling fan, some morbid curiosity made me press play. His voice came through the speaker like a wounded animal, slurred, sobbing. Sandy, please, I messed up. I messed up so bad. I can't sleep in the apartment anymore. Everything reminds me of you. He choked. I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't mean it. I swear. I love you. Please, just talk to me. Just once, please. The silence after the voicemail was heavier than the message itself. The room felt too still, too expectant, as though waiting for me to crumble. But I didn't. I deleted the voicemail, then turned the phone off completely. Over the next days, the desperation escalated. New numbers, new attempts. One message dripping with remorse. The next one furious, accusing me of abandoning him. Another begging, another threatening, another pretending to be indifferent. He tried every mask because he didn't know which one used to manipulate me best. He didn't understand that none of them fit anymore. One afternoon after work, I found myself chopping vegetables again, the rhythmic sound oddly grounding. Carrot, carrot, carrot. Chop, chop, chop. The kind of mundane, peaceful moment I never got to enjoy with him. My phone rang, unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again and again. Then a text, I know you're reading these. I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, you can't just walk away. That's not how relationships work. I wiped my hands on a towel, grabbed my water glass, and turned on a podcast to drown out the vibrations. Another text came through, I miss you. We were good together. We can be good again. I didn't even acknowledge it. Then the tone shifted suddenly. Who are you with? Is there someone else? A laugh burst out of me, short, disbelieving. The absurdity of it. The man who flirted with someone else in front of me for months was now accusing me of betrayal because I chose myself. I typed nothing. I replied to nothing. I let the silence speak for me. 3 hours later, right as I was settling into bed, the phone buzzed once more. Voicemail. Another one. I pressed play reluctantly. You know what? You're selfish, he said, voice trembling with rage. You don't get to throw my words back at me. You don't get to pretend you're some saint. You were supposed to fight for me. I sat up slowly, staring into the darkness of the room. You hear me, he screamed. You were supposed to save me. Save him from what? His own choices, his own ego, his own reflection. I ended the message, deleted it, blocked the number, again. For the first time, I realized something important. Something simple. He wasn't grieving me. He was grieving the version of himself that existed when I was the one holding him up. After that night, I decided it was time to sever the final tie. I opened my laptop, logged into my wireless carrier, and initiated the process to change my phone number. The screen asked me to confirm 3 times, like it sensed how permanent the decision was. I confirmed. When the new number activated, the silence became absolute, clean, pure. A door slamming shut, not in anger, but in completion. The next morning, I stepped outside into the cold air. The courtyard glistened with dew. A neighbor, someone new, someone I hadn't met yet, was watering her plants. She smiled at me. Morning, she said. I smiled back. It was small, but real. I didn't need to check my phone to brace for anything. The noise was gone. His voice was gone. The storm he unleashed was still raging, but far away beyond the reach of my new walls. I was safe inside myself for the first time in years. But the quiet before the next confrontation was gathering. I didn't know it yet. He was about to find me anyway. 2 months after I walked out, the sky broke open. Rain hammered the city, like it had been waiting for the right moment to collapse. Cold, relentless metallic soaking everything, blurring the streetlights into long streaks of gold. I had just finished a late workout, my gym bag slung over my shoulder, my hood pulled tight around my face, as I hurried down the block toward my new building. I didn't notice him at first. I was focused on the wet pavement on the way, water splashed up around my shoes, on how good it would feel to step inside the warm lobby and peel off my damp clothes. The street was mostly empty, except for a few silhouettes hurrying into doorways or hiding beneath umbrellas. Then I saw it. A figure huddled beneath the narrow awning of a closed coffee shop pressed against the glass to avoid the rain, soaked through despite the shelter, shoulders shaking, head bowed. Something in me knew before my brain even formed the thought. It was him. For a moment, all I felt was stillness. Not shock, not fear, just stillness. The kind that comes right before the final page of a chapter you already know the ending to. He lifted his head when he heard my footsteps slosh through the puddles. His eyes were wide-rimmed red, frantic when they locked onto mine. His drenched jacket clung to his body, completely useless against the cold. His hair plastered to his forehead dripped rainwater down his cheeks, mixing with streaks of mascara he'd never admit he used to darken his lashes. Sandy. My name fell from his mouth like a prayer. Someone had forgotten how to say properly. I didn't stop walking, but I did slow. The rain beat against my hood, loud and insistent, but the world between us was silent. No cars, no voices, just water and breath. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my tone flat. Not cruel, just empty of the softness he used to devour. He stumbled forward a step out from under the awning and into the downpour like he thought movement would earn him mercy. The rain drenched him instantly, plastering his thin jacket tighter to his frame. He wrapped his arms around himself, shivering violently. "I had to see you. I didn't know what else to do." His teeth were chattering. "You changed your number. You blocked everything. I didn't know where to go." "How did you find me?" I asked. He blinked hard. "Rachel. She heard it from someone who heard it from your old neighbor." Of course, gossip works faster than grief. "You're getting wet," I said quietly, not moving toward him, not offering shelter beneath my umbrella. It wasn't concern. It was an observation. He laughed, a short, cracked sound that bordered on a sob. "Do you think I care about that right now? Look at me, Sandy. Look at what's happened." His voice broke. He didn't hide it. I lost everything he choked. My job wrote me up twice. I'm on probation. My mom's on my case. My friends, all those people I went out with. They don't even answer my calls anymore. Melissa pretends she doesn't know me. I had to give up the apartment. I'm staying at my brother's place, on his couch. I listened. Not because I cared about the details, but because I needed to hear the truth come from him, unfiltered by excuses or charm or manipulation. He took a shaky breath and stepped closer, rain running down his face in messy rivulets. I messed up. God, Sandy, I messed up so badly. I said nothing, letting silence stretch so wide between us it felt like a canyon. He rushed to fill it. I should have never said what I said. I know that now. I was being stupid, arrogant. I thought you'd never really leave. His voice cracked again. I thought you needed me. That made something inside my chest shift, not softening, but settling like a puzzle piece clicking into place. You didn't think I'd choose myself, I said quietly. He flinched like the words struck him physically. I didn't come here to justify anything, he whispered. I came because I'm drowning, and because I know you're the only person who ever really cared about me. I watched him shake in the rain, soaked to the bone breath visible in the cold night air. Once upon a time, this sight would have ripped me into pieces. I would have rushed to him, wrapped him in my coat, begged him to come inside, poured hot tea, wiped the water from his cheeks. Not anymore. He stepped closer again, hand lifting, as if to reach for my arm. I took a half step back, the distance between us, small but final. He froze in place, hurt flashing across his face like lightning. Sandy, he whispered, voice trembling. Please, just let me come upstairs. Just to talk. I don't need anything else, I swear. Just 10 minutes. 5, please. I'm freezing. I'm not okay. I know, I said softly, and I meant it. But I didn't move toward him. He swallowed hard. Desperation coated every word that came next. I'll change. I'll go to therapy. I'll stop going out. I'll delete every woman's number in my phone. I'll be better. I'll be the guy you fell in love with. I promise. I'll do anything. His voice shook with sincerity, with terror, with regret. But I saw it for exactly what it was. Not a transformation, a performance, a frantic attempt to regain access to the stability he'd lost. I took a slow breath, letting the rain pound against the umbrella like a reminder. You told me, I said, my voice calm, that you would wear what you want, text who you want, and go out with whoever you want, and that if I didn't like it, I should leave. He opened his mouth, a strangled sound escaping. I continued. So I left. He shook his head violently. No, I didn't mean it. You did, I said. You meant every word. You just didn't expect consequences. His eyes filled with something raw, and dark old fear, new clarity. "You want to be the man I fell in love with," I said. "But that man didn't exist. I was in love with a version of you that you never were, and you were in love with a version of me who stayed, no matter how little she got in return." He stared at me, breath shaking, water dripping from his chin. "I'm not her anymore," I added. A single tear, or maybe a raindrop, slid down his cheek. "Please," he whispered, "just don't leave me out here. Just talk to me inside. 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I met his eyes. "You're not part of my piece," I said. Something inside him crumbled. Not loudly, not dramatically, just collapsed. I stepped backward toward the entrance of my building. He didn't follow. He couldn't. Something in my voice had finally made him understand. Behind me, the lobby door swung open and warm light spilled out. My neighbor Mark from 4B walked out in gym clothes, stretching his calves. "Rough weather," he said, smiling at me. "Yeah," I replied, returning the smile, small real. The door closed behind us, sealing off the rain, the cold, and the wreckage of a life I no longer belonged to. The last sound from behind the glass was something between a sob and a breath. I kept walking, and didn't look back. The door closed behind me with a soft cushioned thud. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, nothing meant to wound, just a simple final sound. It felt almost gentle, like the universe letting me know that the past was officially on the other side of the glass. I didn't need to turn around to confirm he was still standing out there in the rain. I didn't need to check his expression, or count the tears, or measure the regret in his voice. I had already heard everything I needed to hear. The lobby was warm, bright, and still. The soft buzz of the overhead lights felt oddly comforting, like a white noise machine. My soaked jacket dripped gently onto the welcome mat, and I adjusted the strap of my gym bag on my shoulder. Mark, my neighbor from 4B, held the door for me as he headed out into the storm. "Be careful out there," I said. He laughed lightly. "I should be telling you that. You're the one walking home in a monsoon." "Fair point." He waved as he jogged into the rain, and the door swung shut behind him, sealing off the storm once more. I stood there for a few seconds, letting the warmth wash over me, my breath slowly steadying. It was strange how the same city, the same sky, the same weather could contain two different worlds in one block. Outside was everything I'd survived. Inside was everything I was about to become. I pressed the elevator button and listened to the soft, mechanical hum as it descended from the upper floors. My bag felt lighter on my shoulder now. Not physically, just the weight of carrying someone else's emotional chaos had finally fallen away. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide what kind of night I was going to have. I stepped into the elevator, the doors gliding shut with a whisper. My reflection stared back at me from the brushed metal surface. Wet hair plastered to my temples, jacket dripping rainwater onto the tile floor. But my eyes were clear, bright, awake, alive. I touched my fingertips lightly to my cheek, almost surprised at how calm I felt. Floor 3 lit up, then 4. I thought about him for a moment, not the man he had been outside, but the man he had been inside our old apartment. The one who smiled at his phone instead of at me. The one who rolled his eyes when I asked simple questions. The one who used indifference as a weapon. The one who laughed with Melissa at jokes I never got to hear. The one who told me outright that he would text who he wanted, wear what he wanted, go out with whoever he wanted, and that I could leave if I didn't like it. He meant those words. He just never expected me to listen. The elevator chimed the doors opening onto my hallway. The soft carpet muffled my footsteps as I made my way to my apartment. The rain outside beat against the building like a heartbeat, distant and dull. I could almost imagine him still standing there, drenched and shivering, staring at the closed door, as if it were a wound he couldn't comprehend. It should have hurt more. It didn't. I reached my apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Warm, quiet, mine. I hung my wet jacket on the hook by the entryway, set my gym bag down on the bench, and flicked on the lamp beside the couch. The amber glow filled the space, softly spilling across the furniture, making the little studio feel like a sanctuary instead of a temporary escape. My shoes squelched as I walked to the kitchen, leaving tiny wet footprints on the hardwood. I pulled off my soaked socks and tossed them into the laundry basket, my toes pressed against the cool floor, grounding me. I opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and drank half of it in long, steady gulps. He would have mocked me for drinking water after a workout instead of some overpriced energy drink. He always needed something louder, something flashier, something that would make him stand out even in mundane routines. But I didn't need noise. I needed peace. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same place I'd sat the night I left, except now the weight in my chest was gone. I reached for my phone and glanced at the screen. No missed calls, no frantic texts, no unknown numbers clawing their way into my quiet. I had changed my number. I had shut the doors. I had chosen myself. My reflection in the darkened window looked almost unfamiliar. The Sandy who stared back had straighter shoulders, softer eyes, a strength she didn't have 2 months ago. A strength she had grown in the quiet of evenings spent alone making dinner in mornings, jogging through the courtyard, in nights lying on a bed that didn't have to be shared with disappointment. Outside, a car splashed through a puddle. A distant siren wailed. Rain tapped steadily against the window. The city kept moving, unaware of the small miracle happening in this tiny apartment. A life being rebuilt, a heart being reclaimed, a future reopening itself like a door I had forgotten I could walk through. I lay back on the bed, stretching out fully, taking up space, my arms above my head, my legs uncrossed, my spine relaxing. For so long I had been small next to him, careful next to him, afraid next to him. Now I was alone, and the fullness of it felt like breathing fresh air after holding my breath underwater. I closed my eyes and listened to the rain. Not a single part of me wondered whether he was still out there. Not a single part of me wanted to look. The past was outside that lobby door, blurred and irrelevant. The man standing in the rain was a ghost, a shadow of mistakes I no longer needed to chase or comfort or justify. I had done what he told me to do. I had left, but not in the way he expected. He thought leaving meant losing. He thought leaving meant punishment, regret, desperation. He thought leaving meant I'd come crawling back. He never understood that leaving was the beginning, that leaving was the quietest, strongest, bravest thing I had ever done. That leaving was choosing myself in a life where I had been taught to choose him every time. Sometime after midnight, the rain softened. The storm began to pass. The city lights shimmered through the glass like scattered, distant fireflies. My breathing slowed. My limbs grew heavy with exhaustion. I fell asleep in the center of the bed, warm, safe, untouched by chaos. Not waiting for a door to open, not listening for